Late to the party as usual, we've been playing Grounded, a 1 to 4 player survival game available on Steam and Game Pass for PC and Xbox. It also features crossplay between the two in case that's of any use to you.
It's had glowing reviews from everybody else, so it's about time a pair of jaded old farts tell you why they think it's bad.
The setting of Grounded is loosely based on a popular sci-fi comedy from the late 80s, starring, among others, the fantastic Rick Moranis. Honey, I Shrunk the...
The plot being that you are a teenager mysteriously shrunk to the size of an ant by some unknown technology and unceremoniously dumped in the backyard of Dr. Tully, the inventor of said technology.
If for some bizarre reason you feel compelled to return to your normal size so that you can continue the horrors of high school, you'll have to traverse the yard, kill most of its inhabitants,
keep firing, assholes!
and survive long enough to uncover what happened to you before finding a way to undo it.
Everybody got that?
Grounded is immediately visually appealing in its cutesy, colourful aesthetic, a stark contrast from the survival game norm. The world is pretty, for the most part, and vibrant, yet also feels very much like a wilderness, as your diminutive size means that your view is almost permanently obstructed by vegetation. Large threats can approach surprisingly quietly, and often the only early warning of their approach will be the bending of grass in the distance, rewarding vigilance.
The map itself is pretty varied once you get out of the grass, of which admittedly there is probably a bit too much. Different features of the garden effectively create small biomes with their own resources, enemies, environments, and even some good uses of verticality in places.
In fact, it's such a good setting, I can't believe nobody made a movie out of this idea!
Of course, it being a survival game, you'll be spending a lot of your time gathering materials from around the map with which to make better equipment and structures and stuff.
Everybody knows that! Of course we do, sir!
This works largely as you would expect in any survival game, but Grounded has included some decent quality of life enhancements to make life a little less tedious, such as the hot drop system. Inventory space is just limited enough to make it a mechanic without being a constant annoyance, as is all too often in various types of games, not just survival.
Take only what you need to survive.
Grounded also features base building, as you would no doubt expect, which has had the quality of life treatment too. God, I hate this build system. This was so blatantly designed for console, I hate it. Being able to move blueprints and parts, build straight from nearby storage, and recycle bits without material loss, except when physics catapult your components into the stratosphere.
Careful, you idiot! I said across her nose, not up it!
These all make for a non-punishing system which encourages you to experiment with building for as long as you can be bothered to keep gathering materials to do so.
We ain't found shit!
As we mentioned before, this game is plot-driven, leading to a particularly easy-to-follow survival experience. Were we to do another Good Games for Introducing New Players video, this might be a contender. If the normal make-your-own-direction approach to survival is something that annoys or bores you, then have no fear, Grounded will tell you where you need to be going.
You told me to let you know the moment Planet Druidia was in sight, sir.
So?
Planet Druidia is in sight, sir.
Obsidian's near-legendary competence is fully on display in this title. The game is stable, nigh glitch-free, and ran like a dream for us. Neither of our PCs are particularly new or expensive machines, so this should be a good sign for most players. Controls were pretty tight, and we really didn't have any technical problems to speak of.
Fuck! Even in the future nothing works!
What's more, the devs are still supporting and adding to it, so it's only likely to get better with time. Since release, new biomes, bosses, and all sorts of other content has been added to the game for free, despite it being a buy-to-play title with no cash shop, and this we heartedly applaud.
Updates rarely mess with prior content in pointless ways, like 7 Days has been doing recently. Hands up in the comments anybody else that thinks they should have left Skills alone about 5 updates ago. However, it's probably a good thing that we left it a while, because without some of this additional content, the yard would have felt like a significantly emptier place at launch.
So, considering how rare it is these days to play a game which feels like a finished product, that all seems quite positive, right?
No, it's not what you think. It's much, much worse.
Time to start talking about the bad bits.
Commence Operation Vac You Suck.
You may notice we didn't say much about the plot earlier. That's because there's not much to say about it. It's very straightforward and almost exactly what you would expect from the start of the game if you've ever seen a movie in your life.
Prepare to fast forward! Preparing to fast forward! Fast forward!
At the risk of sounding patronizing, we couldn't shake the feeling that we were playing a game aimed at players under 12, which is weird because that's the exact opposite of its PEGI rating.
Did you see anything? No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Good!
The game leads you around by the nose, obstacles generally have a single simple solution, and progress is blocked in many ways until you continue the plot. Writing did nothing to change this feeling either.
System reboot in progress.
Yay, it's worse Claptrap.
The humor in Grounded is bad.
Like a frumpy, naked failure,
onion.
The game is trying to be comedic, but in a completely family-friendly way, which is great if this game is for your kids, not so much for anyone else. It's not funny once you're past the concept of a machine harboring a secret cooking fetish,
We call it Mr. Coffee.
or a bad parent consistently putting his own agenda before the good of his children.
I'm sorry, my dear. You have to.
Additionally, the game is set loosely in the 80s. Well, 1990, but that's basically still the 80s, and some things from that period have not aged well.
Funny. She doesn't look Druid.
Including me. Just because Stranger Things was undeservedly popular doesn't mean you can add similar music and a few references to give the illusion of a cohesive setting, especially when all your characters sound like millennials.
Which very naturally takes us to the cast. Grounded does not feature a character creator in favour of having 4 set teenagers for you to play as, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, we're just not sure the dialogue they wrote for them is dynamic enough to justify it.
Perhaps the variety of lines would have been better with 4 players. Obviously we played this 2-player, it's kind of our thing, but this did mean that we got very sick of hearing the same lines from our chosen pair.
Light. Burn back the shadows and turn away the inky depths of the night.
Yeah, I know how light works, bitch.
We switched to the other 2 for a bit, and they were painfully annoying, so we switched back. All 4 are basically one-dimensional though. We have Max, brave but dumb jock, Willow the whimsical philosopher, Pete the over-invested and insultingly lame D&D nerd, and Hoops who has made basketball the only factor of her personality.
Initially I was rather enjoying playing as Max until what was simply called the incident.
Blackhand, what's your business?
Oh, why did you keep picking on the black hands? They're allowed to be here.
He got some of that.
Just like you are.
Internalized
Blackhand's gangs everywhere.
Whoa.
Yeah, wow,
Whoa,
Max.
Max.
Difficulty seems a bit all over the place in Grounded. There is co-op scaling, but we still found that 2 players make for significantly easier time than just 1. Most threats are quickly trivialized through better equipment, with just a couple that remain challenging later on.
Additionally, the difference between Tier 1 and Tier 2 gear is
Holy shit!
surprising, considering how quickly we got there. Ladybirds can be easily defeated with basic equipment and drop the main components for the armor that carried me most of the way through our playthrough.
It's a good thing you were wearing that helmet. Yeah.
That's not to say we didn't face challenges to begin with, but it didn't take long for us to start finding the yard a pretty safe place for the most part, with one particularly disgusting 8-legged exception.
Shit. Oh, you fucking kidding me? There's 2 of them!
Even the plot bosses we faced didn't present much of a challenge by comparison.
Whoa, really?
Yep.
Thankfully, there are different difficulties, however, higher settings also impose some really annoying stuff like incredibly fragile tools.
Shit.
It really wouldn't hurt the game to have some more customization options, just like, well, most survival games.
There is also no setting to change the rather short day-night cycle. We would love to say that this is to force you to deal with the interesting nighttime mechanics, like in Dying Light or maybe even Minecraft, but it isn't. Sure, will spiders wake up at night, but as they're big enough to bend grass, you can easily avoid them or just sit around bored on top of a rock until they go back to bed, or even just make beds yourself and sleep through the night, or perhaps as a last resort, you might even just get good and kill them.
Speaking of which, neither of us particularly like spiders.
Oh, well, we're too late. What a shame. I'll just throw in reverse. We'll get out of here.
In Eve's case, for a very good reason, in mine because I'm an irrational xenophobe towards anything with 8 legs. So you might think we would be all for a game which features spiders, but also an arachnophobia mode to make them less disgusting. Oddly, you'd be wrong.
Grounded's Arachnophobia slider allows you several options for removing the spidery features of these scuttling nightmares, and much as we applaud the idea to make the game more accessible, the way it works is an issue.
Set it to 1 and it removes 4 legs, leaving you with what is essentially still a giant spider.
On 2, it removes all the legs, leaving the floating body of a spider, which has the added side effect of removing your ability to see the thing's full hitbox.
At 3 or above, you basically get a poorly drawn blob, which no longer registers as a threat, despite the fact that it definitely is one.
Would I lie?
Eve tried playing with this on maximum and the results weren't good.
Surely it would have been a better idea to just morph them into some other bug or threat of approximately the same size. I mean, what the hell is this? It's fucking immersion-breaking laziness, Obsidian. That's what.
Buckle up back there. We're going into hyperactive.
While we're on the topic of this game's main threat, would you believe us if we said you can trivialize the big bad wolf spiders by climbing on a juice carton and just shooting at them? Yeah, we thought spiders might be able to climb vertical surfaces too, but I'm glad we tried this anyway, because they don't.
Now, the world. Or more accurately, the yard. Make all the crap small world jokes you like, and believe me, we did. It really is a small map for a survival game. It's basically impossible to get lost, and due to the limited space in which to house different areas, there is often only one place you can go for a particular material, leaving you with waiting days for respawns your only option for getting anywhere.
My other criticism when we're talking about, a survival game and like choosing where to live and things like that and all the considerations you'd normally put into it, in this game there's not really any good reason not to live in the middle of the map.
Yeah.
Because you will have to go in every direction at some point, so being kind of central just makes sense. It also happens to be where the lake is, which is probably about the most attractive area in the game, so you might as well. As we said before, a lot of the map is taken up with grass. The biomes, such as the haze or sandpit, are tiny and there is no weather.
What?
Yep, none. Ignoring anything else, can you imagine how cool rain or snow could have been in this game? Or gliding on your dandelion heads with wind as a factor? Well, imagine is what you'll have to do.
Any new materials you find must be taken to a field base to research their applications.
Doing the backhand heads and parts. Don't say anything, Max, you little racist.
The machine has 3 charges, which slowly regenerates. And no, you can't have one in your base. This slows you down because faster is bad, I guess?
Okay, maybe sometimes, but they could have made your glowy scab watch capable of doing the exact same thing, preferably without that charge limit, if they were desperate to make researching bug bits a part of the game.
At least it gives you some kind of diversion. Most of the time there is a simple formula to playing Grounded. Go do the thing to get the thing to make doing the initial thing easier. Wanna survive stink bug gas? The stink bug drops the parts you need for a gas mask. Survive the scorching heat of the sandpit. The antlions in the sandpit drop the bits you need for heat-resistant armor, and so on and so forth. Maybe this really is just us, but we don't play open-world multiplayer survival games for a guided linear experience.
And finally, Grounded's worst sin. Honestly, it's boring.
She's gone from suck to blow.
I mean, survival games have been some of our favourite titles to play together. We love them, and yet we burned out on Grounded incredibly quickly.
Let's go on. Let's go on.
Are we finishing the roof, by the way?
No.
Oh.
As one brave Steam review standing out from the mass of positivity noted, there is a reason so few people have the achievements for finishing this game, and it's not because it's impossibly difficult. Less than a quarter of Steam players have the achievement for going to the first proper lab, or even the one for standing on top of a juice carton to shoot a spider.
Grounded does nothing new. It's a shiny coat of paint on a solid but basic survival game model. It is a good example of how a competently made game does not guarantee a thrilling experience, because you've probably played this before, only in a more interesting way.
So overall, we didn't really get on with Grounded.
In fact, never play this again.
Part of the reason this review is so late out is that I had a mental block about what the hell we could possibly say about a game that does nothing really different. And to think people used to rag on Ark for being the generic survival game. But you know what, Grounded, for all its non-invention, bugs, bad decisions and bullshit, at least in Ark we could tame, ride, fight and breed dinosaurs. Grounded is a functional survival game. You try to survive, your main threat is insects. Hope you weren't expecting more than that.
I just kind of feel that they've just kind of given you the bare minimum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And made it look pretty, admittedly, but I will just show the audience for the sake of this video that this is exactly where Eve lost her inspiration with the game. Like, you can tell the exact moment she stopped giving a shit.
We hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll be doing lots more 2-player co-op focused content, so give us a like and a subscribe if you want to see more. See you soon!